check. But I'm up at that time 35, 40 minutes before I do that. And then I'll check that. And then I'm usually out the door pretty quick to go to F45. I'll come in. Will come in here and do my goals, gratitude, affirmations, and top 3. I do that every morning in my planner. Write my goals down twice a day. It's one of the things I learned from Grant, and it works. So it really works.
Twice or 3 times a day, you write down your goals, like your big goals, like the huge goals, or just like your daily or weekly or annual goals?
No. So my goals, they're in 3 categories. And this is what I tell people too. You should be able to share this. Like if somebody asks you what your goals are, you should be very specific. So I've got 3 goals in my real estate team. So we've got a real estate team with EXP. It's 1, 16, and 20. So one person as a team lead. I set that this year. And I just hired Chase a couple, 2 or 3 months ago. He runs the real estate side for me. He's building the team, adding on new agents, 16 million in transactions, and then 20 agents on our team by the end of the year. And for my GSD, it's 50, 100, 500, 1,000. So 50 people in our mastermind, 100 people in my community, 500 people at my conference, and 1,000 of my courses sold. And so that's the 2 businesses that I own. And then my personal is lose 106 pounds because I'm down 80 something. Time with my girls. I've got 4 daughters. Me,
4 daughters.
Healed and whole. $4. I know, right? Yeah, $4.
That's the biggest challenge of everything you said.
Just found out I'm going to be a granddad. So for the first time last week. Yeah, I just found out Friday. And then me, healed and whole. I've been on just a real journey of just inner healing and doing a lot of soul work. And there was some just in the last year, a lot of trauma from growing up that I didn't even realize was there. That I literally, it's funny, I used to use it as almost like a badge of honor because my therapist asked me, I told you my story, 12 schools in 12 years, went to 6 different high schools. I moved 6 times from my 6th grade to my senior year of high school. My therapist looked at me about 8, 9 months ago and she said, why in the world would you want to move so many times? I said, I didn't. If I ever got in trouble, my mom said, go pack a bag. And in 24 to 48 hours, I was on a bus plane and my dad was on the way from Michigan to pick me up. She looked up at me about 15 seconds later and she said, well, how do you think that's affected your relationships with all the women in your life who are supposed to love and protect you? And I was like, damn. Like it was the second biggest aha moment in my life. It's so funny because I was dating a girl for about 1.5 years that I loved very much. And 3 weeks before that moment, I had flew in. She lives in Northern California, in Santa Rosa. And I had flown into San Francisco. We didn't even make it out of the city. We had an argument. I made her stop and I got out with my bag. Wow. And I realized, and when she said it, it hit me. She was like, Ken, all you're doing at 50, I was 53 at the time. All you're doing is 53 is you're playing the role of that 15-year-old kid. With the exception of waiting, instead of the woman telling you have to leave, you're packing your bag and you're out before she tells you. And it was like, oh my. And I literally, when she said that to me, 3 weeks before that, I had an argument with her and I made her stop and I got out. 10 minutes in being there. And so some of the trauma and some of the things some of the triggers and some of the things that we deal with as adults, we have no idea they're rooted in stuff that happened for me 40 years ago. Yeah. And I had no idea until she said that to me. So it's been a journey of, when I say healed and whole, it's, we're made of a physical body, our soul, our mind, will, and emotions, and our spirit man. And so the mind, will, and emotions that's the part that's got to be worked on. So I have 2 therapists. Lauren, I've got an appointment with her tomorrow. Yeah. I have 2.
You need 2 to handle you.
Dude, isn't that the damn truth? But Lauren Zollard's she's one of the top somatic therapists. So she deals with central nervous system, like things that trigger you, like something can happen. And I'm like, ooh, like what? And it's a, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, or like the things that happen so trauma is simply things that happen to us too much, too soon, or too fast, too much, or too soon in our life. And this our nervous system can't receive all that, and it causes trauma, and it sets a new baseline in our life. And so, in that relationship that I told you, I love that woman, and our relationship was so toxic And I didn't realize why it was toxic, because I was toxic, because she was toxic. We both had went through so much childhood trauma. Neither one of us were healed. Neither one of us knew we needed to be healed. Like, we're leaders. We're speaking on big stages. Like, so I really believe, like, this next book I've got coming out is really characteristics of champions. Like, what did champions do that are different than everybody else? But the next book after that is going to have something to deal with trauma and what I've walked through now in the last 8 months, really understanding why I got out of the car, really understanding why I would go back to somebody who struggled with an alcohol addiction and was mean spirited and very verbally and emotionally abusive when she drank. And I just kept going back, because all my body knew growing up was chaos. So when you know chaos, it's familiar, and that familiarity you think is actually love or acceptance when it's not.
Yeah.
So there's a ton that I've learned in the last 8 months, a ton.
I love that. I resonate with that on one of your things. And I had this realization, and again, knowing it, but being able to control it is two different things. But I had a friend and we were doing something and I got reactive and I almost did that whole like push you away before you can push me away thing. And he's like, dude, what the fuck is your problem? And I'm like, I have abandonment issues. Like, I was abandoned before I was even born. So what do you think that's playing out in my life? And he's like, oh shit, okay. I get it, friend. But it is interesting that those patterns will replay themselves in different ways. And although we learn different coping mechanisms and different ways to navigate it, it still continues to play out.
Yeah. That's one of the things Lauren and I, she does what she calls somatic experiences, where she just takes me back in childhood memories. And we had one last week. I was probably 10 or 11 years old. My mom got mad at me and threw a humidifier at me, missed my head, and it went through the wall. And she was asking me about that experience and literally took me. And I literally could remember the room and how the room was laid out. I was like 10 or 11 years old. That was 42 or 43 years ago. And she's walking me through this whole experience. And it was just like, wow. Like, and then teaching me, the very beginning of our therapy, we've been going for 6 weeks, was me finding the space for me that brings me peace, that calms my nervous system. For me, it's a blue and white striped beach chair with my feet in the sand, and I can hear the water and I can feel the sand, and the sand's cool. So I literally take myself in my mind to that moment. And while all of that was going on in that memory in my mind, she goes, now imagine yourself in that beach chair. And she had even asked me about relationships with my grandparents. And my mom's mom, we called her Granny, was super sweet, loved people. She was great. I always loved being around her. She was real calm, and you just felt safe. And I remember one time in my therapy session last week or a couple weeks ago, she goes, now imagine if your granny was sitting in the room when your mom did that. I said, oh, she wouldn't have done that, because my granny had been all, Arlene, Jesse, don't you dare throw that thing at your son. Like, she would have stuck up for me. But it was funny how the peace, just like the pit of your stomach feel when you're thinking about that, was just gone. It literally was gone, and it was peace. And so learning how to regulate your central nervous system is huge in your relationships, huge in your job, huge in every area of your life. Because I just taught on this on my podcast a few weeks ago in my coaching with Ken, is the difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is just boom, 0 to 100. And trust me, I still don't get it right. There's times I have to go, dang, like I didn't get that right. And I have to learn to give myself grace, or then go ask for forgiveness if I did it around somebody else. But a response is something that's thought through. It's something that's patient. It's something that you are contemplating. And even though all the emotions are raging, you're learning how to suppress the emotions through finding peace and going, okay, I don't have to do it this way anymore, or I don't have to do it this way the rest of my life. I'm learning a new way, like you said, cope. I'm learning not even coping, but I'm learning a new way for me to regulate my nervous system and not my past experiences.
I love that. I would say for myself, that would be one of my superpowers, is the response thing. everything I meticulously think about before I respond. I think I had one reaction, and the sound waves throughout my organization was so detrimental that it was like I could never do that again. It literally shook
Yeah.
the foundation of everybody I knew. And so I was like, you're not allowed to have reaction. You
Yeah.
must always and only respond.
And the
Minus
only
my
thing you
kids.
can do.
There is
Yeah.
reaction. My daughter knows how to push my buttons more than anybody on this
Yeah.
planet, and I do react in those situations. But work wise,
I would dare say she's your mini me if that's the way she is.
Oh,
That's exactly
yes,
right. It's
she
always
definitely
that
is.
way. She's your mini me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The only, when you
So
make a
how
mistake like that, I was gonna say, when you make a mistake like that, all you can do is own it. All you can do is own it
100%.
and apologize and move forward, and then go, okay, well, how can I make change so I don't do that again?
Yeah, and as
not
a
hurt
leader,
the people that I really care for.
how are we going to together fix this and work on this? Because it is
Yeah.
that is what we do. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
How did you navigate, and did you find having daughters this stuff play out that was done to you from a female figure? Did that translate differently to your own kids, or was it such a different dynamic that it didn't even play into each other?
No, I mean, there were moments where I saw the explosiveness of my mom come out. But one of the things I learned early with my kids, when my daughters were probably 6 and 8, is when I made a mistake, I was very quick to own it and repent. Hey guys, Daddy lost his temper and he shouldn't have done that. I'm very sorry, but that's not okay for me to do that. They're young. They don't really understand what that means. But as they grow older, they understand, hey, Dad's not perfect, but I'm telling you, the quicker you can own it and go, hey, I really made a mistake and I'm really sorry. I love you very much. And I'm sorry. It hurts my heart that I hurt you. And as a man, as a father, as a mother, if you can do that with your kids, they're going, my 26-year-old stopped by here today. We're close. Like, she is my mini me. And, I'll never forget, she came to Birmingham to go to college. She was working at the Melting Pot. About 2 weeks into her job, she called me on a Sunday night. And she said, Dad, thank you for being hard on me. She said, or what I thought was hard on me. She said, because you should see some of these other college students that work here. She goes, Dad, thank you. And it didn't take her long. She left there and went to Chick-fil-A and quickly worked her way up the ranks and kept getting promoted at Chick-fil-A.
Nice. What was it about being hard? Just disciplined or taking accountability? Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, because this newer generation, right? That's not the norm. It's, participation awards and let me fix that for you. And they don't have the fortitude to survive in the world. Well,
yeah. Though we were fortunate with my oldest. She was always real sensitive. She loved God. She was always real sensitive to the Holy Spirit. And I remember one night she was about 14 years old and she kind of bowed up at her mom. And she was like, I'm not doing that, blah, blah. And I just walked in the room. I got a suitcase and I walked in the hallway. She was arguing with her mom. I handed it to her. I said, here. She goes, what's that for, Dad? I said, you might as well go ahead and pack your bags and hit the road, girl, because you ain't talking to your mama that way. She looked at me like, what? I'm like, no, seriously, go ahead, go pack your bag. Where am I going to go? I don't know, but you're not going to stay here talking to your mom that way. And I let her go in her room. The one awesome thing about her was, if we had an issue like that, I'd let her go in the room and I'd tell her, say, you and Jesus need to go have a conversation. And about 15 minutes into it, she would always come back and she'd be like, Daddy, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, I get it. It's part of it. And that's the thing too, is not only do you need to own it when you make a mistake, when somebody else makes a mistake and they apologize, you need to extend forgiveness and offer them some grace. Go, hey, you know what? I get it. I love you. I forgive you. And move forward. Don't look back. There's a reason the rearview mirror is this big and the windshield's this big.
Yep. And I love that saying because it's so true. You can't be hung up. I mean, obviously with addiction, you can't be hung up in the past, man. You got to make your future. And I feel like that's where other programs maybe fall a little short because they just keep reliving the past over and over and over again. There's no room for the present and future. So I agree with that a lot. Okay, so tell me this. What's your biggest tip for finding and eliminating limiting beliefs?
So this is my sweet spot. This is what I teach on my first course. My first course is all about limiting beliefs. So you have to identify, remove, and replace them. So identify them. One of the ways that we identify them is through setting goals, through going after goals. And then what happens is you'll see these limiting beliefs begin to creep up in your mind. Like for me, 1,000 courses sold this year. I mean, that's a 200, that's a 2 million, two point some odd $1 million in revenue, 1.9 million in revenue. And, I can look in there and go, ooh, man, can we really do that? Like, is that feasible for 1.9 million? Like just in that one product, what happens is that it'll expose scarcity. So identify, remove, and replace. So you have to realize that they're there. So you have to be aware. You have to be conscious. You have to be you have to be self-taught. You have to be coachable. You have to be around the right people because you're going to learn real quick what limiting beliefs are there. I teach on 6: fear, insecurity, scarcity, comparison, shame, and success. Those are the 6 I talk about a lot. So identify.